everyone and welcome! It's been a while since we've done the last versus episode, but you guys really enjoy these, so let's go for another one. As always, I let you guys pick champions you would like to see in a battle. And as always, I want to remind everyone that the gameplay powers of these champions have no value for this video. Here we judge our champions purely based on their lore. So it doesn't matter that in-game Guren can summon a giant magical sword from the skies, because in the story he can't actually do that. One more important thing is that we'll try to judge everyone in their natural environment and possibly in a 1v1 scenario. So with all of that said, let's get started. Zoe versus Aurelion Sol. This matchup might be a bit sketchy, because Zoe is trying to tell us that whatever we know about Aurelion Sol might not be true. But still, let's begin with what we know about him. Aurelion Sol is a cosmic dragon, born in the first breath of creation. As he traveled around, he filled the empty space with lights. Around those lights formed planets, and on those planets primitive life. But just as those tiny creatures were amused by Aurelion's creations, which they called stars, so Aurelion Sol was flattered by the audience of countless worlds. And as we know, one of those planets that caught his attention was Runeterra. And the people who decided to use that opportunity were the Targonians. They tricked Aurelion into donning a crown they made for him. A crown that boosted his ego and enslaved him to their will. That's why Aurelion now has to listen to the will of Targon. And here is where this matchup gets sketchy. Zoe is one of the aspects of Targon, so technically, because Aurelion is on a leash, he can't even harm Zoe, or so we think. You see, the way it works is that every time Aurelion doesn't listen to the Targon's command, specifically every time he doesn't listen to Pantheon who's giving Targon a voice, they blow up one of Aurelion's stars. And since the stars are basically a part of his body, it's like stabbing Aurelion with a knife. But that's all they can do to him. If Aurelion Sol wanted, he could easily just annihilate everyone from Targon, but then he would have to suffer through the pain of a dying star. In fact, that's what he did in his story. At the end of his color story, Aurelion actually destroys Pantheon with such a force it scars Runeterra and terraforms parts of it. That is the power of a cosmic dragon. So even though Zoe is an aspect of Targon, a being on a godly level compared to any other creature from Runeterra, she couldn't do anything to Aurelion Sol. But there's still something I need to mention. First of all, according to Zoe's story, she seems to be somewhat of a friend with Aurelion Sol, even though she is constantly making fun of him. That's because she is the one who sometimes protects him from the wrath of Pantheon. But she also has a quote that says that Aurelion might not be as powerful as we think.
Said he made all the stars, and the humans believed him!
But here you need to remember that the aspect of Twilight is a deceiver, and lies and toying with people is very common in their case, so I wouldn't really trust Zoe. Zed versus Yasuo. Once again, another very close matchup. Both of these guys are from Ionia, and both follow the training of some kind of martial arts. On top of this, both wield supernatural powers. But who would be able to utilize it better? Let's start with Zed. A ninja trained by Master Kusho, one of the greatest ninja leaders of all time. And although his powers come from years of combat experience and the emotional scars obtained by hunting Jinn, his true potential was unlocked when he released the dark forbidden techniques of the Kinko Monastery. These dark techniques gave him power to manipulate shadows against his enemies. With these new powers, he started his own cult where he leads his own pupils down a dark path. The last time we heard about Zed was in Zaya's and Rakan's story. There we learned that Zed is using small temples around Ionia to drain the magical essence from the surrounding lands. We don't really know why he is doing it, but there seems to be a deeper reasoning behind the dark cult. But even though Zed has his own massive following, for the purpose of this video, we'll have to judge him alone as an individual. Against him we have Yasuo, one of the deadliest swordsmen in Ionia, master of the legendary wind technique, and master to Thalia. Everyone believed Yasuo would become a great hero, but his story took a darker twist. When Noxus invaded Ionia, Yasuo was tasked with protecting their master. But realizing his true power and potential, Yasuo decided to leave his master behind while he sliced through the enemy forces himself. When he returned, the master was dead. Acknowledging his failure, Yasuo willingly turned himself in, but he was shocked when he realized that he wasn't just accused of the dereliction, but of the murder itself. Confused and wrecked with guilt, he wouldn't allow his own people to take his life while the real killer runs away, so he raised his own sword against his school and fought his way free. He spent years wandering around Ionia hunting the killer down. Unfortunately, his mission forced him to kill many of his comrades and even his own brother Yone. In his story, Yasuo is able to face against dozens of warriors at once, no matter their weapons. It's all because Yasuo was the only person in his generation to master the legendary wind technique. A technique so powerful it can cleave through the enemy from a long distance. And that's what would decide the battle against Zed. It is true that Zed can instantly hop in and out of shadows, and possibly surprise Yasuo. But Yasuo's speed is undeniably unmatched when it comes to Zed. Zed's armor and the choice of weapons heavily slow him down. Zed's shurikens can be blocked by Yasuo's wind techniques. And when it comes to close combat, Yasuo's wind strikes would easily take Zed down. So unless the future stories reveal some kind of ultimate powers that Zed is now collecting in Ionia, Yasuo wins. Twitch vs Singed. At first I thought this would be a fun matchup, but the longer I thought about it, the more interesting it became. Singed is a chemist who's not afraid of experimenting on living subjects, or even himself. He's the man responsible for the creation of Vorik, a creature that ultimately scarred his face for life. And he's the man who supplied Borem Darkwill with the chemical weapons during the invasion of Ionia. His own body is very resilient because of his cruel experiments. He is nearly fully immune to poisons. His skin is considerably tougher, and his intelligence gives him massive advantage against other scientists. The problem is, his enemy is Twitch. The reason why Twitch has never appeared on our channel is because his story is very short. But still, it tells us exactly what we need to know. Twitch is a massive rat that evolved in the underbelly of Zone. Well, Zone itself is an underbelly, so let's say in the sewers. He is still driven by primitive senses, like hunger and greed. But he is armed with a crossbow that fires chemically augmented arrows. This alone could be enough to take down Singed. You have to remember that Singed is a scientist, not an enforcer. He doesn't really have anything to arm himself other than his chemicals. But in this case, those would be useless because Twitch evolved because of those chemicals. So this fight has three different ways it can turn out. Either Twitch's arrows can straight up pierce through Singed, or Singed's skin is tough enough to stop them, in which case Singed could use chemicals that burn tissue instead of poisoning it. But if Twitch is immune to those two, he is still a rat, and rats carry very dangerous diseases. And Singed is immune to poisons, not diseases. So since Twitch could win 2 out of 3 of these scenarios, I'd say Twitch is the default winner. Guren vs Ahri. Normally I'd say this one is pretty even too, but here we actually have enough information to determine who would win. Let's start with Ahri. Ahri is a Vastaya, a combination of magical fabled animals and mortal humans. She has a deep connection with the spirit realm, and in general, being a Vastaya makes her more powerful than any other human. But she has 2 special powers. First of all, she can manipulate the spiritual forces to summon orbs that can rip her enemies' souls, but besides that, she has a power that only those who read her story know about. Ahri has the ability to see and consume someone's memories. This comes together with draining someone's soul. And usually this is the way she kills her targets. Be it willingly, just like in her story where she was ambushed so she consumed the assassin's soul to break free, or unwillingly, just like when she lost a fight against her hunger and consumed the soul of her lover. Against her we have Guren. Guren is a Demacian hero. He wears heavy plate armor and a sword infused with petricite, a substance able to absorb magic. We know that his blade burns through anything magical, and the mere presence of his armor makes magical beings quiver. But fortunately, his scholar story told us how Guren deals with powers such as Ahri's. In his story, there was a witch that secretly kidnapped and ate the memories of her victims. Guren was able to discover her hideout and decided to buy out the lives of his comrades with his own thoughts. He let the witch to take one of his memories in exchange for his soldiers, but the witch betrayed him, Guren felt it, and he had to kill her. This tells us that even through his armor, Ahri would be able to consume his soul. The problem is, this is where her powers would stop. She couldn't use any projectiles as those would just bounce off of his armor, so Ahri would have to get close in order to take down Guren. But we know that through Guren's will, he can act on his own even as his memories are being drained. So there is no way Ahri would survive a second against fully armed Guren in close combat. So in a realistic scenario, this battle has to go to Guren. And the last battle we have here, Clad versus Poppy. The battle of Noxian and Demacian Yordles. This one will be problematic because we still don't really know what Yordles are. But thankfully, Clad and Poppy are both Yordles, so that problem fixes itself. Yordles are magical beings even more mysterious than the shapeshifters, or the Vastaya Sharai, who are also known as the Pure Vastaya. Yordles seem to be closer to spirits than actual mortal creatures. They are considered very dangerous and humans generally fear them and believe they are killing machines. That's why a lot of the Yordles take on human-like appearances to blend in. This is what Heimerdinger and Ziggs did in order to stay concealed in Piltover. But we still don't really know how their capital city, which is Bandle City, works. The theory is that it is a city that can only be seen by those who have spiritual connections. But outside of that, all of our guesses are blind. So how is it with Poppy and Clad? Well, since both of them are Yordles, their Yordle powers don't mean anything, since they would be equally powerful. So it comes down to what they can do by themselves. Clad comes in a bundle. You can't really find him without Skarl. That is, until Skarl gets scared. Then he simply runs away and Clad is alone. So I wouldn't even count with Skarl in this battle. Nevertheless, Clad has a lot of experience with fighting hordes of decent Noxian soldiers. Nothing too elite, but they are decent. It's because he is dealing with all the soldiers that trespass into his territory near the Noxian borderlands. That is pretty much all the training he has. Poppy, on the other hand, comes from an elite Demacian legion led by Orlon himself. She has a proper Demacian training, and she's wielding the Hammer of Orlon, a weapon that gives her godly powers on top of being a Yordle. Her hammer can squash colossal beings or throw them in the air, so Clad would probably not be an issue. Yes, he is a maniac that can power through anything, but I doubt he could face a weapon with such an insane force. So this round would definitely go to Poppy. But that's the last one for today. Hopefully my explanations are understandable, and in case you don't agree with me, feel free to argue with me below. And of course, huge thanks to all of you who submitted champions for this video. But that's it for today. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to rate it and subscribe for more lore and news. The Void has just been released, so you don't want to miss it. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Discord if you'd like to chat. Regular streams are still happening, so follow us there too. Links to our merch and P.O. Box will be in the description. Of course, massive shout out to our patrons for going the extra mile. You guys are unbelievable. And with that, thank you all so much for watching and for your support, I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you, come again.